Hello and welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are tackling a word that I guarantee you have heard at least 5 times this week, probably in a meeting, maybe on a billboard, definitely on LinkedIn. Sustainability.
Only 5 times. You must be having a remarkably quiet week. Or maybe your noise-canceling headphones are just working overtime.
Right. It is absolutely everywhere. And let's be honest with each other for a second. For a lot of people, when they hear sustainability or ESG, their eyes just kind of glaze over. It sounds like expensive compliance, or maybe just a cynical PR exercise,
Yeah.
Put a green leaf on the annual report, say, we love the trees, and call it a day.
It often feels like a tax on doing business, doesn't it? Like you have to fill out the forms, tick the boxes, and hope the auditors go away so you can get back to the real work.
Exactly.
But today, we are looking at a stack of documents that argues it should be something completely different. We're looking at sustainability not as a chore, but as a strategic business weapon.
A weapon. I like that. We are diving into the world of Think Plus Academy. This is a training institution based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and they are claiming to, well, disrupt the way we learn about this stuff.
They really are.
We've got their 2025 company profile and a very detailed internal briefing document simply titled the Think Plus Academy Program.
And what is fascinating here is that they aren't just teaching you how to recycle or how to, lower your carbon footprint in a vacuum. They are trying to fundamentally bridge the gap between academic theory, what you learn in a lecture hall,
Right.
and industry reality, what actually happens when the supply chain breaks and you're losing money.
So the mission for this deep dive is to figure out how they're doing that. We're going to look at their executive master in applied sustainable practice. And folks, don't let the fancy title scare you. We're going to unpack the acronyms.
There are a few.
We're going to look at why they hate traditional exams. And we're going to talk about a really spicy topic, the competence versus qualification debate.
Which is arguably the biggest debate in the educational world right now. Is a degree worth the paper it's printed on if you can't actually do the job?
It really is the question of the decade. So let's jump right into the first big conflict in these documents. The source material spends a lot of time drawing a line in the sand between academic-led training and industry-led training. Why is this distinction so important to them? Is it just branding?
I think it's more than branding. It's the foundation of their entire philosophy.
Yeah.
To understand Think Plus, you have to understand what they are not. They are contrasting themselves against the traditional academic model.
Okay.
In Malaysia, where this academy is based, that's the world driven by the MQA and Malaysian Qualifications Agency.
Okay, so that's the standard university route. Robes, degrees, 4 years of study, lots of reading lists.
Exactly. And to be fair, the documents are very clear. That model is vital. We aren't bashing universities here.
Not at all.
It's about rigorous research, foundational principles, and understanding the why behind concepts. But the briefing document points out a critical flaw when it comes to fast-moving industries like ESG.
I'm guessing the flaw is speed.
Rigidity, which leads to a lack of speed. MQA-accredited programs usually follow a pre-designed curriculum. It's structured, standardized, and highly regulated. And that's great for quality control. You want your doctor to have a standardized education.
Yeah.
But it's terrible for business agility. If a new global carbon tax is announced tomorrow, a university curriculum might take, 2 or 3 years to go through the committee meetings needed to officially update the syllabus?
Right. It's like trying to turn a massive cruise ship. It's safe, it's reliable, there's a great buffet, but it is not dodging an iceberg anytime soon.
That is a perfect analogy. And that is where the industry-led model comes in. Think Plus aligns itself with a completely different standard. Instead of the MQA, their North Star is ISO 14024.
ISO 14024, that sounds incredibly dry, like a part number for a screw you buy at a hardware store.
It does sound dry, doesn't it? But stick with me, because it's revolutionary for professionals. It's the international standard for certification of persons.
Certification of persons? Wait, usually accreditation certifies the course, like this is a gold star history course.
Precisely. Most academic accreditation looks at the content. Is the syllabus good? Are the books accurate? ISO 18024 looks at the human. It validates that you, the specific individual, have the competence to do a specific job right now.
That is a subtle difference, but I see why it matters. It feels more portable.
It's incredibly portable. But more importantly, it changes the focus from theoretical knowledge to practical skills. The documents mention that in this model, modules are agile. They can change on the fly.
So you mean?
If a new sustainability regulation drops in the EU that affects Malaysian exports, Think Plus can integrate that into the training by the afternoon. They don't need a committee meeting.
That is fast, but I have to play devil's advocate here. If it's that fast and they aren't following the rigid academic rules, isn't there a risk that it becomes a bit loose? How do they prove you actually learned anything if they aren't doing the standard exams?
That's the million-dollar question.
Oh, yeah.
The academic model relies on exams and dissertations.
Yeah.
You memorize, you regurgitate, you forget. We've all done it.
Oh, yeah.
But the industry-led model, it's competence-based.
Yeah.
It's about output.
So show me, don't tell me.
Exactly. The document explicitly says the goal is to equip learners with job-ready skills. It's the difference between being able to write a beautiful, citation-filled essay about how an internal combustion engine works
Okay.
and being the mechanic who can actually fix it when it starts smoking on the highway. Which one do you want in a crisis?
I want the mechanic.
Yeah.
Every single time. And there was this aha moment for me reading the briefing. I think this isn't saying universities are bad. They aren't saying don't go to college.
No, not at all. They see it as complementary.
They're saying they offer an alternative route. It's focused on competence rather than just attendance. You don't get the certificate just for showing up and warming a chair for 6 months. You have to prove you can turn the wrench.
That's the key. In a field like ESG, environmental, social, and governance, which is evolving so rapidly, that agility is probably more valuable than a textbook that was written 5 years ago before the current laws even existed.
So we know the philosophy behind it, speed and competence. But let's get into the weeds a bit. How do they actually teach this? Because the documents mention a very specific methodology, and it starts with the woman running the show, FTs, Dr. Norsedatul Akmar Mazalan.
Yes, the CEO. The documents describe her as the strategic mastermind behind this curriculum. She's a certified green project manager, and judging by the tone of the briefing, she has a bit of a bone to pick with boring lectures.
She is definitely not a fan of death by PowerPoint. The briefing document says they use andragogy. Now, I had to look this up because I usually hear pedagogy.
It's a crucial distinction. Pedagogy comes from the Greek for leading children. That's how we teach kids in school. The teacher holds the knowledge, the student sits there, listens, and receives it. It's passive.
Right.
The assumption is the student knows nothing.
Which makes sense for a fourth grader, but for a corporate executive.
Exactly. That's where andragogy comes in. It means leading men or adults,
That's right.
adult learning theory. It assumes the student already has experience, they've battled scars. The teacher isn't a sage on the stage lecturing them. They are a guide on the side
So it's about facilitating discussion.
and using the student's own experience to solve problems.
And to do that problem solving, they use a specific tool, the P5 framework. Now, I've heard of the 3PS people, planet, profit. That's standard sustainability 101. But P5, is this just adding more PS for the sake of marketing?
It's actually deeper than that. This comes from the GPM Green Project Management Standards. It stands for product, process, people, planet, and prosperity.
I noticed prosperity replaced profit. That feels like a very deliberate choice.
It is deliberate. Profit is what you made this quarter. It's a number on a balance sheet. Prosperity implies the long-term economic health of the business and the community around it. It's broader. It's about survival and growth, not just cash extraction.
Okay.
But what's fascinating is how they use this P5 framework in phase 1 of the training. They say it builds logical thinking.
Wait, hold on. Usually universities brag about teaching critical thinking. Isn't that the gold standard? Why are they pivoting to logical thinking?
This is a really nuanced point in the briefing, and I think it's brilliant. They argue that academic critical thinking is often about deconstruction, taking an idea apart, finding the flaws, critiquing it, which is useful for a thesis or a debate.
But not so useful when the factory is on fire and you need a plan.
Precisely. Logical thinking in this context is about connection. It's about constructing a path forward. It's about connecting those P5 concepts to real-world dynamics.
Can we make this concrete? Because logical thinking sounds a bit abstract. Walk me through how a student would use this P5 logic in a real crisis.
Sure. Let's take a real-world scenario. Imagine you run a furniture company, and a new law passes banning the specific type of varnish you use because it's toxic.
Okay.
A critical thinker might write a report analyzing why the law is unfair or poorly written.
Which might be true, but it doesn't solve the problem. My furniture is still unsellable.
Right. A logical thinker using P5 maps it out like this. First, product. We have to change the varnish, which might change the look of the chair. Second, process. Changing the varnish means we have to change our drying machines.
Oh, right.
Third, people. The guys on the factory line need to be retrained to use the new machine safely. Fourth, planet. Does this new varnish actually reduce our toxicity, or are we just swapping one bad chemical for another? And finally, prosperity. Can we do all of this without going bankrupt, or can we market this non-toxic chair at a premium price?
Oh, I see. So instead of just complaining about the regulation, you are building a decision matrix. You're mapping the blast radius of that one decision across the whole company.
Exactly. It's constructive rather than deconstructive.
Hmm.
It's designed for decision-making. You aren't just spotting the problem, you are logically sequencing the solution.
That makes a lot of sense. So
Rocco.
that's phase one, learning to think straight. Then they move to phase two, which is strategic analysis.
This is where they move from talk to tools. The participants, who remember are often working executives, have to take that logical thinking and apply it to case studies using tools like SWOT analysis and gap analysis.
SWOT is pretty standard: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. We've all done that on a whiteboard. But gap analysis.
It's simpler than it sounds, but it's vital. It's looking at where a company is right now, let's call it point A, versus where it needs to be sustainable, point B. The gap is the distance between those 2 points.
I see.
The training is about accurately measuring that gap and figuring out the specific steps to bridge it.
It sounds very practical. But here is where it gets really interesting for me. Phase three, the assessment. Because they claim there are no traditional exams.
None. No bubbling in multiple choice answers with a number 2 pencil.
So how do you pass? Do you just high-five the instructor and promise to be green?
If only it were that easy. No, you have to produce. The source material says participants produce either a project paper for their own company, so actually solving a real problem they have at work, or a detailed review of 20 cases. But the real twist, and I think this is unique, is the final hurdle.
The storytelling session, I saw that.
Yes. The assessment culminates in a storytelling and Q&A session.
I have to say, I love this because how many times have we seen brilliant technical experts, engineers, scientists who just cannot explain what they do to a normal person?
It's the single biggest bottleneck in the sustainability industry. You have engineers who have all the data on carbon emissions, they have the spreadsheets, they have the charts, but they can't convince the board of directors to invest in the solution because they can't tell the story. They just bore the board to death with data points.
The briefing doc actually has a quote about this. It says, the goal is to produce a sustainability communication specialist. They need to humanize the data.
That's it. Graduates have to be able to stand up, present their project, and defend it under questioning. It builds trust. If you can't communicate the value of sustainability, the data doesn't matter. You're just background noise.
Now, this focus on storytelling and persuasion, it connects to another big concept in the documents. They make a distinction between two types of mindsets: the employee versus the entrepreneur. And they aren't talking about who signs a paycheck, are they?
No, it's not about your job title. It's about your mental operating system. The document says the employee mindset focuses on internal operations, efficiency, compliance.
Okay.
The questions they ask are, how do I cut waste?
Yeah.
How do I follow this new regulation? How do I not get fired?
Basically playing defense, just keeping the ship afloat.
Right. But the entrepreneur mindset looks outward. They focus on the market. What are the missing values? Where is the gap in the market that I can fill with a sustainable product? How can I innovate?
So the employee tries to save money, and the entrepreneur tries to make money.
That's a great summary. And Think Plus seems to be pushing for that entrepreneurial offensive strategy. They want their graduates to use sustainability to create new business models, not just clean up the old ones.
And that requires storytelling. You have to sell the vision.
Exactly.
And just to give our listeners a sense of time, this isn't a weekend workshop. You don't just show up on Saturday and leave on Sunday as a master of the universe. The program structure runs from September, October, through to graduation in June, July.
So we are talking about a 9 or 10-month commitment. It's an executive master, after all. It's designed for working professionals, but it's a rigorous journey.
Okay, so let's say I'm sold. I do the work, I tell the story, I close the gap. What do I get at the end? Let's talk about the credentials, because it looks like a bit of an alphabet soup at first glance. There are a lot of acronyms here.
It does look like alphabet soup, but this is where the business strategy of Think Plus really shows its cards. They're operating as a satellite center. They don't issue the degrees alone, they collaborate.
Right, I saw two big names: Wilmington Metropolitan University, which is international, and UITM's Institute of Business Excellence, or IBE, which is local to Malaysia.
Correct. This partnership model is crucial for credibility.
Huh.
But there is a specific hack here that I found fascinating. I don't use the word hack lightly, but this feels like one for anyone planning their career.
Oh, I love a good hack. Tell us about the credit transfer.
Okay, so remember how we said this is industry-led, not academic-led?
Mm-hmm.
Usually those two worlds don't talk to each other. They speak different languages.
Right.
A university usually looks at a professional training certificate and says, that's cute, but it's not a degree.
Right. Thanks for playing. Start from year one.
Exactly. But Think Plus has set up a system where, because of these partnerships, completing this industry certification can actually reduce the credit hours needed for a future MBA at the partner university.
Wait, break that down. So if I take this course to help my business right now,
Oh.
and then 3 years later I decide I want that formal MBA title.
You don't start from scratch. You effectively bank the credits from this program. It's called Recognition of Prior Learning, or RPL. It bridges the two worlds.
That is huge.
You get the practical skills you need for your job today, and you bank the academic credit for the degree you might want tomorrow.
It turns the professional certification into a stepping stone rather than a dead end.
It effectively removes the risk. You aren't wasting time on a course. You are starting a degree, just in a different format.
And we circle back to ISO 14024 here too. That's what makes the certificate portable, right? Because if it's just a local Malaysian certificate, does it work if I get transferred to Dubai or London?
If it was just a local university cert, maybe not.
Right.
But because ISO 14024 certifies your competence based on an international standard, it's recognized globally. It's independent of the Malaysian system.
So it travels with you.
It travels with you. If
But-
you work for a multinational, that certification validates that you actually know your stuff, regardless of where you learned it.
And for the professionals listening who need to keep their licenses active engineers, accountants, the documents mention CPD points.
Continuous professional development. Essential. If you don't get your points, you lose your license. These courses carry those points, so you are essentially hitting 3 birds with 1 stone, learning a new skill, maintaining your current professional license, and banking credits for a future degree.
That is frighteningly efficient. I like it. There's one more acronym we need to throw in the soup. GAFM.
The Global Academy of Finance and Management. The briefing notes that graduates could apply for professional titles from GAFM, like Certified Sustainability Development Specialist.
It really is about stacking credibility, isn't it? You get the Think Plus cert, the University Seal, the ISO standard, and the GAFM title.
It's called credential stacking. In a crowded job market, or when you're trying to pitch a client as a consultant, that alphabet soup behind your name signals trust. It signals that you haven't just read a book, you've been vetted by multiple independent bodies.
So let's zoom out. We've looked at the model, the method, and the credentials. What does this all mean for the education landscape?
I think it represents a shift in what we value.
Yeah.
For a long time, the value was in what you know, the theory, the textbook definitions. That's the academic model. That's the library model.
I have read all the books, therefore I am smart.
Right. But Think Plus is betting that the future value is in what you can prove you can do. It's the laboratory model, or maybe the boardroom model. It's shifting from qualification to competence.
And using that P5 framework to turn sustainability from a compliance headache into a business strategy.
Precisely. If you can walk into a company and say, I'm not just here to help you save the planet.
Yeah.
I'm here to help you use sustainability to improve your processes, engage your people, and increase your prosperity, that is a very powerful value proposition.
It really changes the conversation. It stops being about doing good and starts being about doing business well.
Which, ironically, is probably the best way to do good in the long run. If sustainability is profitable, everyone will do it.
So here's a thought for you to chew on as you go about your wit. We live in a world that is changing incredibly fast. Technology, climate, policy, it's all in flux.
It certainly is.
In that kind of world, is the traditional 3-year degree starting to look a little obsolete, or at least too slow? If you had to hire someone tomorrow to save your business from a supply chain crisis or a new carbon tax, who would you choose?
The person who wrote the dissertation on the history of supply chains.
Or the person who has a portfolio of projects proving they've actually fixed one?
It's a question that every hiring manager and every student needs to ask themselves.
It certainly is. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Think Plus Academy and the future of sustainable education.
Always a pleasure to explore these shifts.
We'll see you next time. Keep thinking.